So my name is Bren. I started transitioning in 2015. So I was pointed into a few directions, and during this time, I never thought I would be able to have access to FFS. It just seemed something that was so alien to me. Um, so when I started, because I grew up in Wisconsin, and I started transitioning in Missouri, where I live right now. There just weren't a lot of resources or people, and so it all felt very scary. But as I was able to get farther along in my transition, I ended up working for a company with very good health insurance, and they had a specific transgender health advocate. So when I found out that we were able to cover FFS, and I knew that was something I very much wanted because I had a lot of dysphoria around my face. Like a lot of Irish American women, I had a giant chin and just that option was available. So when I realized this is something I would cover, I knew there was one person I wanted to go to, and that, of course, was Dr. Deschamps-Braly.
Well, it's really interesting. You mentioned that you didn't think that it was possible for you. I think a lot of women who are watching this, and also trans guys and people on the spectrum between those two, I think a lot of people think of FFS and related procedures in that way, that it's some unattainable thing. But we're both here to show that it is achievable. So tell us about how you ended up making it become a reality for you. I know you were working at a job that had insurance. A lot of people have questions about insurance. Can you talk through kind of how that went and how you got insurance coverage?
Absolutely, yes. So I was very lucky. There is a San Francisco-based tech company that employs a lot of people in St. Louis, where I currently live, and their insurance is very progressive. So in addition to being able to cover like hormones and whatnot, I knew very explicitly that they covered SRS, which I was able to have. But just from poking around some of the resources, I was able to find out that, first of all, there was a specific transgender health concierge person. So my understanding is that this is something that oftentimes other companies, especially tech companies, will employ. So a specific person to help guide you through what is possible. Because my understanding is that with especially a lot of healthcare coverage when it comes to FFS in particular, and some other more recent procedures, exactly caught up to the terminology or the flow for how that would work. So these healthcare concierges can really help in order to get you through that process. So I had just an absolutely wonderful person, and she was able to help a lot with the billing, and was really the one who said, like, no, this is going to be possible, and you want to go to Deschamps-Braly. You don't want to settle for anything less. And I certainly didn't, because it's my face. You want the best for your face. So it was about finding the right people, asking the right questions, and honestly doing a little bit of research from my side.
Now, when you selected that job, did you know going in that they had trans-related health services covered under insurance, or was it the other way around?
So I initially started this particular job as a contractor, and I became aware that the job did have that kind of coverage, and that certainly inspired me to work very hard to get hired on full time. I do know that while coverage of FFS isn't as common as other procedures or coverage, there are more and more companies that are going that particular route.
I'm sure that that's going to give people a lot of hope. So just one more question on insurance, because so many people ask about it. Did you have to pay and then get reimbursed, or how did that go?
So I paid the initial deposit. So that was a much smaller portion than the full payment, but I did pay the deposit. That was reimbursed to me in full by my insurance. So ultimately, I only had to pay for my lodging in San Francisco during that time, airfare, and incidentals. So it was really the deal, I should say.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I was entirely out of pocket. So I'm always in awe when I hear such a wonderful story like that. And I hope that excites some other people about the possibility too.
Absolutely.
So now that we've kind of gotten through the logistics of money, which is always such a huge issue for most of us, can you talk a little bit about how you decided to go to Dr. DB? Did you talk to other surgeons? Like, what was your research process, and how did you come to that decision?
Certainly. So I should mention that. So I had SRS first. So I was kind of in the mindset of realizing that it's very important about the person you decide to go with, because the surgeries that we're pursuing are, oftentimes very invasive, and they're also very tailored to a particular person. So we need to be really mindful, because it's not like getting like your tonsils out or something. It's something that is, has very far-reaching effects, and you need to be very careful. So when I was researching people, I was really attentive to who are the people who have been doing it the longest, who have the most experience, who really made a name for themselves. And so in the process of doing that, I narrowed it down between two particular surgeons. Um, but I was a little bit hesitant about going with Dr. DB, because at first I thought, oh golly, my insurance isn't going to cover this, until my transgender healthcare concierge confirmed, oh yes, I have worked with Dr. DB before, and we most certainly do. And once I heard that, my mind was made up. So from that, I was working on, of course, the heritage, working off being a protege to Dr. Osterhaus, and just a lot of the testimonies that I've heard from people, and the real mastery. And I do have to admit, I was a little bit sold when I found out the two of us had a Milwaukee connection. So
That's right. I believe he did a residency or a postdoctorate fellowship there, a surgical fellowship.
Yes, that, and a little bit too, I had to say, was it the New Yorker, that piece from 2018?
Yes, there was a piece, a feature in the New Yorker about his practice, and if anybody hasn't seen that, I think you can find it on their website. It's very in depth, and it interviews several people who went to him.
Yes, so those were some of the things I thought coming into it, but I think from my experience about being able to especially do a consultation, see a lot of the pictures, realizing how Dr. Deschamps-Braly has such an understanding of aesthetics. And I think that's something that can't be understated enough, is that, again, this is not just any medical procedure. You need someone who really understands the diversity of appearance of persons, not only on a technical level, but just on a real, like, aesthetic level. And that was something I was very drawn to.
Comparing the two surgeons, did you have a consultation with the other surgeon as well, or was it just the one?
I did not have a consultation with the other surgeon. I did speak with them, but I did not visit them the same way I did with Dr. Deschamps-Braly.
And can you sort of describe what the consultation is like for people who don't know?
Absolutely. So I flew into San Francisco. Prior to the consultation, I got my jaw and like teeth area all x-rayed. So I came in with a whole set of x-rays and my medical information. So during the consultation, there were different pieces of it. Part of it was getting pictures of yourself. So you get pictures with under a very particular lighting. So they have a starter picture. A lot of it was just looking at, at my face and getting a sense of what they're seeing, and also like what you see in yourself. So one thing I knew is I could point to things that made me dysphoric, like my brow bone, of course, my chin. Um, but the thing is so much of our sense of like what makes for like a male face, what makes for a female face is just sort of intuitive to us that we can't always exactly put our finger on. And something that uh, Dr. Deschamps-Braly and um, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Dr. Jana, that they were able to really pinpoint were all the little subtle details that really make your whole face fit together in one way or another. So they were able to point out and say, okay, we think a lip lift, for example, would really work well for you, as would maybe some fat transfers and things that I wouldn't necessarily have known about. So a lot of that was just eyeballing, getting specific measures. So uh, flying all the way out for a consultation might seem kind of excessive until you recognize that, pictures can be tricky because cameras have different lenses on them that can alter the shape of your face. So being able to actually like touch and get like measurements of, how many centimeters, millimeters are all your features. And then being able just to also look at all of the before and after pictures from different people who had gone before, and being able to recognize what is possible, what can be done, what has been done, which I found really helpful because we live in a very face-tuned world, and it was so wonderful to being able to see like these are really well done, documented, photos, and we're taking a very realistic and very earnest approach to it. Like this isn't fantasy. This isn't something extravagant. This is about constructing the female face that you have inside of you. And I found that all very helpful. So I was made to feel very, very safe. I felt very comfortable, and honestly, I felt really inspired being able to see so many people and see that shift in their eyes from before to after. And I kept thinking, this is it. This is what I want.
And it's interesting looking at the results because it's not a one size fits all situation, as you were saying. It's like everybody who goes to Dr. DB ends up looking like someone. They're not all cookie cutter. They have. It's like he's bringing out what you were saying, that bringing out the femininity in what you already have and not completely reconstructing you to look like a totally different person.
I agree. I agree. And that's I think the thing that people keep saying about not just my results, but also like other people I know who have gone to Dr. DB is you look so natural. And I love that. It's I something that I think I had to get over when I started pursuing FFS is that growing up as a kid, I grew up with like so many jokes about like Michael Jackson, for instance, about like, oh, plastic surgery, you must be like insecure about yourself. You're some sort of freak if you keep doing this or that. Um, but I think being able to go through the consultation, see this has really allowed me to recognize that this isn't about vanity. This is about reconstruction. And I feel very happy. This is exactly what I needed.
Yeah, it's really interesting how it changes how you feel about yourself in a way that I wasn't expecting. So to that end, can you sort of describe what it was like? Well, first of all, let's get a time frame in place. So you had the consultation, and then you booked when, and then how long after that did you have the surgery?
Certainly. So I had my consultation. My situation might be a teensy tiny bit different because I did this during the age of COVID. But I had my consultation in June of last year of 2020, and then I booked my surgery for the beginning of September in 2020. So it was only a couple of months. So that gave me enough time to get all my ducks in a row and able to get time off from work and get ready for surgery.
So then, can you describe once you arrived in San Francisco through the surgery and the recovery, kind of what people might expect?
Absolutely. So I flew in with my surgery buddy on and the situation might be different just as the circumstances around COVID change. But I flew in on Sunday, I believe. I got into my hotel. On Monday, I had a COVID test and a preliminary session, a pre-surgery check-in, where we went over just some of the details, what to expect. I picked up medications. We talked about here are all the medicines that you need to take. So, and there's a whole list. It sounds scary, but it's all laid out for you about here's when you're supposed to take everything, all the medications before and after your operation. So that happened. I had to wait just a few days, that Tuesday and that Wednesday, to make sure that I didn't have COVID-19. And then on Thursday morning at 6 a.m., I was picked up by a driver from my hotel room, and I got into the nicest car I've ever been inside in my entire life. And we drove to the hospital. I do believe they changed hospitals, but at the time it was St. Francis Hospital. So at that point, I got there. I got into a hospital gown, and I sort of just waited for a bit. Dr. Deschamps-Braly came in just to see me right before the surgery, just to make sure I was feeling good, and I was very excited. So a few folks talked to me, and then I went in for surgery. Then afterward, I stayed overnight, and kind of by the morning, I was a little bit more cognizant. There was a doctor at the hospital who had had surgery with Deschamps-Braly as well, and came in just to say hi and talk about their experience. And so by the morning, I was able to be discharged and driven back to my hotel room. And at this point, I am wrapped up like a mummy. So I have it kind of reminds me, if anyone remembers the Weird Al Yankovic movie, UHF. I looked like Town Talk with George, just the way I was wrapped up. And I was instructed that I needed to walk for 2 hours a day and not eat any solid food. I should also preface this by saying that 2 weeks before my surgery, I was also instructed to eat below a certain number of carbs and a certain amount of salt, just to make sure that I didn't have like a lot of excessive like salt and bloating in my body before the surgery. So I bought a ton of Soylent drink powder, and for the next week, I spent most of my days walking outside. So despite the fact that I was horrendously wrapped up and couldn't barely move my face or anything, I was still able to walk. So I didn't feel like an invalid, so to speak. I should say that having had SRS first, I was so used to like being like completely immobile for like weeks on end, and this was not the case. I was very much able to be out and about. So I spent most of my days, walking up and down, going to the beach, doing all that. But I'll admit, it was very hard to talk. I was slurring myself a lot. The only way I could drink things is I had to look at myself in a mirror so I could like make sure that like I was balancing the the glass on my lip the right way. And my nose was all plugged up from the stents, so I could only breathe out of my mouth. So when people ask me, oh, was it painful? I'd say, actually, it wasn't that painful. It was just really annoying because your face is all numb and you can only breathe out of your mouth. But it wasn't really painful. So I did that for about a week. And then I was able to go to, I was able to go back to get the first part of everything removed. So I went back to the office after about a week, and they were able to remove most of the bandages, but they left the nose plate on. And so I remember they, cut things. They washed my hair, which had been unwashed and just kind of dangling out of my bandages for the whole week. And while I couldn't see my whole face, I saw some of the changes. And even though I was kind of, things were a little puffy from having had major surgery, and there were still some like stitches and whatnot, I saw her. I saw myself. And it was just, oh, I broke down crying. It was so beautiful and so exciting.
Yeah, it's an amazing moment that it's really hard to describe until you have it happen to yourself. I remember just feeling just overwhelmed with gratitude at the changes that I saw, because I had done some things that had done nothing to improve my femininity of my face, and had lost a lot of money. And so it was so wonderful to get the bandages off and see where I was going, because it did take a while for things to settle down, but I had a glimpse of the future, and it was so
Yeah,
gratifying. I wanted
it
to
was.
ask you about one thing you mentioned, that you had a surgery buddy. Can you talk a little bit about the benefits of bringing someone with you? Because when I did it completely by myself, and it was probably a little more miserable than it needed to be.
Certainly, yes. So I brought somebody with me because that's pretty much a necessity if you got SRS. So I thought, well, it's another big surgery. I might as well have a friend with me. Um, so I should say that while I wasn't quite as immobile as I was with my other surgery, it was really good to have another person with me as like a companion, someone to walk with me, as we were going to and from the office, being able to carry things, being able to check on the drugs, and just be like a person of support during that time. They're helpful, especially if you need things like someone to, be able to drive you to and from the airport, being able to, um, buy food if you need that as well. But I mean, I think just especially like, you, as good as this is, it's a lot. Just emotionally, it is a lot, and it's so good to have just another person that is there with you the whole time.
Now, as far as after you had everything taken off and you head back, how long was it until you went back to work? Like, did you feel like you went back too soon, or could have gone back earlier, or how did that go?
Certainly. So I was, after I got everything taken out, I believe it was the next day, I ended up flying back to St. Louis, and I took 2 weeks off before I went back to work. Um, I would say having that 2 week healing period, I think, was good. I think depending on your job, you could probably get away with a little bit less than that. Um, of course, everyone's circumstances are going to be different. The biggest challenge I had is my job requires me to talk to people all day. So I think I waited just about enough time, because the first couple weeks there is a bit of a challenge in that your speech is physically slurred just from your lips healing, your jaw healing. Um, so that piece was a little bit hard. But if that's not as much of a thing that you're working with, then you probably could a week and a half maybe afterward. I think you should be good. The recovery period really isn't that bad. I think I think if anything, maybe the tricky part is more that your face can be a little puffy for like a while, so you might look a little odd. But you
So,
know,
how long would you say it took in total for you to really see the full results? Like, can you kind of take us through the stages of your healing process once you got back?
yes, I'd say so. So there were some immediate things. Like for one thing, I got my nose done, so I saw that right away, which was very special. Um, but there were pieces like like my lower half of my face, my chin, jaw, that's been pretty slow to recover. I'd say actually up until like pretty recently. So we're coming on 9, 10 months afterward. It's like it's start getting more shape here, but that was kind of a little puffy, a little rubbery for a bit. Um, uh, so some pieces I'd say that if you are getting forehead contouring and there's the hairline scar, That's visible. I say that that was visible, pretty visible for about like 3 or 4 months, and that slowly kind of faded away. I had a bit of an effect that I think is different from other people. I actually lost a lot of hair,
Mm.
um, which I think had probably had um, more to do with general anesthetic, and probably because I had 2 surgeries in 9 months. So for me, one of the challenges was actually just growing a lot of my hair back. So I used a lot of Rogaine, and things were looking pretty good after about 4 or 5 months, I would say. From that, at that point, my scar started hiding. I think it's not really visible now. The scar under my nose for my lip lift, I think about like 3 or 4 months, I'd say was good for that. Some other things like just having my brow removed, the my brow bone shaved down was was an immediate kind of effect. But I'd
One
say
of the
about
surprising things for me was getting shampoo in my eyes because I had such a brow ridge that it would not like get into my eyes. And once that was gone, I was like, ouch.
that is so funny. Goodness. But I'd say about like 6 months in, I started seeing like a lot of the results. But I'd say they really tell you that like it's about a year for like everything to be more settled. And I think that's definitely true. I'm feeling a lot more um, a sense of everything being finished as I get closer to my 1 year mark.
So, facial feminization, like any surgery, is a bit of a leap of faith. And I know a lot of people are trying to figure out where to prioritize it in their transition. You said that you did your bottom surgery before you did that. Can you talk about sort of how you made the decisions as to what order you did things?
Certainly. So I'm just speaking for myself, but my bottom dysphoria was the that was the piece that I found the most dysphoric about me, because while there were a lot of things about my face I didn't like, I'd gotten used to wearing a lot of contour and things like that. So I didn't have as many. I felt like socially I was still able to blend in pretty well. Um, but what ended up happening is after I had bottom surgery, which uh, uh, it kind of solving one problem made me cognizant of like the other points of dysphoria I had in myself, and I realized after I had surgery just how much I had a problem with my brow bone and my chin, and just it just wasn't right. It just didn't fit with the vision I had of myself in my mind. Um, so I do know a lot of people where their face is the number one thing that is they're dysphoric about. And I think that's entirely valid, because I mean that's the first thing you notice about anybody. Of course, it's going to stand out to you. Um, I think maybe also part of my hesitation, or maybe the reason why I didn't pursue FFS as my very first thing, is because um, without insurance, FFS tends to cost a bit more than SRS. And so part of my mind was about wanting to accomplish something that felt tangible to me. But as it turns out, it very much was tangible. And with more and more insurances covering it, I think it's a reality for more and more people. Um, but those were the big priorities I had. Is I really wanted to have a face that could match what I felt in my heart. And
Yeah. Well, and
um,
mission accomplished. It looks really lovely. And what would you say is the thing that surprised you most about getting facial feminization in terms of either how other people responded or how you felt about yourself?
I don't think I would realize how much at peace I felt. Just how much, because I think after having had surgery, it made me realize just how much just tension and like fear I had just deep within me that was just almost like difficult to break out. And I think one thing I've noticed is being able to get FFS and then really realizing how comfortable I could be in my own face and in my own skin. I realized things like I didn't have to wear makeup as much because I was using that as a defense mechanism. I mean, like makeup is a lot of fun, but that's the thing. It should be something that improves your life, not something that you're using as, you know, as a way to keep you separated and you know, feel protected from others. And so I think it surprised me just how much I just don't even think about the fact that I'm trans anymore. That I can just I can just be. And it's okay.
Yeah, there's something really refreshing about just going through the world, and it's not weighing heavily on your mind. Oh, what is that person thinking, or how am I being perceived? And it frees you up your mind to dream bigger about other things, I think.
I agree. Absolutely.
So I want to be mindful of your time because you've been so generous with it, but do you have any
Thank
sort
you.
of final thoughts, like just advice for others, or some message of inspiration or hope as far as facial feminization and what it might be able to do and improve their lives?
Absolutely. I would say that if you're scared about or if you have a kind of like anxiety around like surgery or just thinking about like the mechanics of like what actually goes into facial feminization, I want to say that I shared a lot of those kind of anxieties, and I made the decision to not like say look at a lot of the surgery footage, for instance, but I would definitely say that the office of Deschamps-Braly went to great lengths to really be able to make me feel comfortable and safe. And at no point did I feel like there was that I was just another thing. Like I was a genuine person, and they really truly cared about being able to get the best results for me. Um, so I do want to say that there is a tremendous level of care, and if you have any kind of baggage from, like I was saying about like people making like jokes about plastic surgery, or like a sense of like wondering if this is like some sort of like sign of vanity, I do want to say it's almost the opposite of that, because it causes me to think less about myself and my appearance. It makes me feel more safe in myself. So if that's where you feel drawn, I do encourage you really to move forward with this, because there is a possible future of you being happy with yourself.
That's really wonderful. And one last question. So how would you describe Dr. DB? What kind of person did he seem like to you? And what is your impression of his goals and what he's out to do?
Dr. Deschamps-Braly, the one of the first things that really struck me was just how much of it seems like a cliche to say this, but how much of an artist, really. Like just being in the office and really recognizing that you know, I wasn't just a piece of meat. I wasn't just like another like faceless person coming in here. I was a masterpiece in waiting. Um, he just truly understands faces, and I can tell that he has so much passion about what he does, and this is truly his life's work. Um, I found him very personable. You know, really just able to connect and honestly make light of something that, you know, separated from this context could seem very grisly and very strange. You know, all this cutting and sawing and whatnot, and he made it just seem so comforting and reassuring, and I had a real sense that I had a future welcome for me. So he's just a real master, and I'm so glad there's a person like him being able to do the kind of work that he does.